Have you seen those statistics? 79% of HR professionals aren't prepared for the post-pandemic economy. 41%, only 41% say they can drive business value using technology and data. And an amazing 60% say they're falling behind in terms of their colleagues and their digital readiness. So in case we haven't met, my name is Francis Wade and I'm here with Carib HR Forum. And if you're here tonight to help answer some of those questions for yourself, then you're in the right place. And I see one of our presenters has already joined us on the stage. Karen, I'm gonna take you down for just a moment while I do some of the introductory stuff. And Carol, hey guys, I'm gonna bring you from the stage just for a moment, and I'm gonna bring you back up in just a moment. If you turn off your microphone and your camera, great. And as you probably know, I am the host of Carib HR Forum, and I co-host with my wife and colleague Dale Pilgrim Wade. And tonight, kind of serious because we're here to not just find out where these numbers came from. Most of them came from an AI HR survey done of 6,000 global professionals. But we're here actually to figure out what to do next. What do these numbers mean for us as HR professionals, or those of us who are not necessarily HR professionals like me, but do a lot of work around people? What do these numbers mean? What capabilities do we need to add? And how do we prepare ourselves for a future that I swear only a few months ago just seemed like theory? But now, everywhere I turn, all I hear about are analytics, data, metrics, and the need to be digitally prepared for questions that CEOs, if you're a practitioner, and demands and expectations that clients, if you're a consultant, seem to have developed during the COVID era. It's almost as if they want HR to operate just like finance. Show me the numbers so we can make some decisions. Where's my dashboard? And these are the kind of concerns that executives are now raising. And times they are changing. So we're going to help you stay abreast of them tonight. We did a little digging around and found that we had two experts here at Carib HR Forum community. Didn't know that they were experts in these areas. This was brand new information. And they're going to be with us tonight. I'm going to bring them up just in a minute, but let me make sure. Oh, looks like the chat has already started. Oh my, I didn't even get to say hello yet. Hello, Venetia. Hello, Simone. Hi, Ahana. Hi, Nikisha. And the room is already full. We already have 52 people. So we're already streaming to YouTube. Okay, so if you're here on YouTube, I actually have some information to give you. If you're watching from YouTube, we're doing things a little bit differently tonight. I'm going to share my screen just so that I can give you some information about what we're doing differently. So if you're on YouTube, we actually have set up a chat for you. So here's the link to the chat if you're on YouTube, because you won't be able to see the chat that we have here going on here in Remo. So we set up a parallel chat. It's actually on WhatsApp, and that's the URL that you can click to get to that particular chat. All right, so while you type that in, if you're on YouTube watching, and we're going to drop this a few times if you're watching from YouTube and you want to be as engaged as possible. Guys, let me ask you this question. Where on a scale of 1 to 5 are you in terms of your analytic skills, digital skills? 5 is complete mastery. You shouldn't even be here because you know so much. Or 1 is a beginner level. Just stick that in the chat for us to see. On a scale of 1 to 5, where are you at? Renee, there is no 0. And Samantha is at a 3, and Macario is at a 1. Farah is at a 1. Great. Maybe Julie says maybe at a 3, a 3.5. So listen, guys, I don't know if you know, but I have a degree in operations research and industrial engineering. I taught research and statistics at the MBA level for about 6 years. And let me tell you something. When we were going through the preparation for this webinar with Karen and Carol, I realized that I knew a bunch of theory. But what we're going to hear tonight is about practice, the practice of using analytics in companies. Okay? All right, so our timeline tonight is I'll soon disappear and finish my introductions. I'll be telling you all about Karen and Carol in just a minute. They're going to come on and give us an indication of how you should prepare yourself for the future. We'll be doing a group activity over in networking mode. If you're new to Remo, don't know what that is, don't worry, we'll sort it out for you. If you're on YouTube, we'll ask you to do the exercise in the WhatsApp group, the link that I sent before. We were taking a break at about 7:15 for a minute or two to reset our room. We'll come back. We'll debrief the activity that took place in the groups, and Kieran and Carol will continue adding new ideas. So the new ideas aren't only for before the activity, they're going to come after as well. And then we're going to talk about the next steps that you should take. And tonight we'll conclude with an open networking session, which will go until about 8:30. So we'll leave the room open if you want to meet and greet other folks. So some of you probably have noticed that behind me, there's some really nice art. So that art is I'm just putting it up now to give you an idea of what it looks like. It's actually prepared by one of our sponsors, the Art House Jamaica. You may have noticed that that last name is similar to mine. This is my aunt. And the pictures actually behind me are huge. They're about this big. But because the wall is so far back, they look really small. But she produces these awesome landscapes. She also produces pictures that are related to houses, churches, schools, mostly all Caribbean landscapes, but mostly from here in Jamaica. And Dale is dropping the link to her work, and we really thank her for donating the art. It's been on our walls for webinars for about 4 or 5 months. And guys, go check it out if you're someone who really loves art, or if you want to have such a cool background like the one I have. Tonight is also brought to you by our sponsors at AIHR, Academy to Innovate HR. And if you're at our conference in September, you may remember Nasha. So Nasha presented from AIHR very early on the second day, I think, 8 o'clock in the morning. And so he shocked me the other day with some news. And the news he shocked me with is that, and I didn't know all this because I've never done a Black Friday sale. I live here in the Caribbean. When I was in America, I don't remember Black Friday being a big thing. It doesn't even register for me. But anyway, he said they're doing a Black Friday sale. He lives in the Netherlands. He's originally from Zimbabwe, lives in the Netherlands. He's telling me in Jamaica that we're having a Black Friday sale. And I said, Black Friday? He says, yeah. Listen, not only is it a good sale, but in addition to the 20% that you guys give your members, we're also giving an additional 25% off. So on AIHR programs, which are really all about completing and filling those analytics and data gaps, you can actually get 45% off their major rate. So if you use the link that's at the bottom, I'll explain more about it tonight, but use the link that's at the very bottom. You'll be able to sign up to get further information, and we'll tell you about when the dates are due. It's not immediately available. We'll tell you about how to get extra help, to answer questions. We'll tell you about how to find information about the payment plan, all this kind of thing. So they're our big sponsor tonight. The sale is next week. More information on that. Okay, so just before I introduce Karen and Carol, let me remind you that at any point, if you're brand new to Remo, you can refresh your browser. So you can refresh your browser, just doing a little check to see. Refresh your browser by simply clicking in the top left-hand corner, usually, of your browser. In case anything goes wrong, you can't hear people, you can't see, all of a sudden Remo starts acting funny, all you have to do is hit the refresh browser. Okay, so let me introduce our speakers for tonight. So I told you a little bit about them. I said they've been members of our community for a long time, and I had no idea they had expertise in this area. They'd never worked together before. But Karen Ranglanesh is from Trinidad. He's an IT professional. He's been teaching analytics for more than a decade, for like 15, 20 years. So he was a bit of a prime mover and a bit of a lone ranger, because when he started doing this thing, we didn't even know this was important. And it was something that other parts of the company was doing, but HR really hadn't started. Anyway, he's picked up 9 certificates from the Academy to Innovate HR. So he got one of those 18-month, all you can learn packages that they have going on right now. It's going to be for sale next week. He got 9 certificates while he was there. He's a serious lifelong learner, as you could imagine. And although he has an IT background, he has a real passion for developing creative and sort of new lean processes for companies. He also does a great deal of organizational development. So that's Karen. So Carol Bent-Wright is a few months away from defending her PhD in HR. Wow, she'll be Dr. Wright to us. But for now, she's Carol. And she's also taken courses at AI HR. She actually has 20 years of solid HR experience and is currently the director of HR at NCU, Northern Caribbean University, where she also lectures. So soon to be Dr. Wright, guys, if you could turn on your microphone and your camera and join me on the stage. I believe I might have to do something on my side. Let me see. Oh, no, I don't. There's Karen. Carol, can you join us? Right, I'm hearing you clearly, but I'm hearing a bit of an echo.
On my end?
Which makes me think, and I'm not seeing Carol. Carol, I'm gonna try something a little extra. Let's see. She's listed as a speaker. Okay, Carol was having some bandwidth issues before, so I think they may have gotten the better of her. Karen, I think I'm gonna hand over to you. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and let me make sure I don't have something else that was coming up. Nope. All right, sure. Karen, I'm gonna hand over to you to share your screen.
Thanks, Francis.
And then I'm gonna disappear and hand over to the experts.
Hi everyone, how are you all doing? All right, let me just get my screen up. Good to hear, good to hear. Hi Sherry Lynn, Rolando, Samantha, glad to hear from you all. All right, so I have my screen up. Glad to hear that Alhana, is that the pronunciation for your name? Think I got it right? All right, great. So happy Wednesday to everyone, and welcome to the session. And I'd like to thank you all for putting in the time and coming in and participating, because I really want this to be a discussion where we really ask the questions. We'll try to answer as much as we could. I don't think that we have enough time to answer all the questions, but I'm happy to get the questions, and at some point in time we would be able to respond in some way or the other. I'm waiting for Carol, but I know that she had some bandwidth issues, so I think I'll just run with it in the meantime until she gets in. All right. So the plan for tonight is really having a discussion on HR's readiness for analytics, and how can we get to that point where we can lead with analytics rather than just kind of running it down. I saw from the responses earlier with the survey that Francis had put out that a lot of people had ones and zeros and low scores. We do work with a lot of HR data, and what my role is tonight is to try to share as much of my experiences as possible, and try to show you all how I applied certain practices to get the work done, and utilize all the information and knowledge that you gather from the company or from all the different companies that you worked in, to be able to mold the data into some actionable insights, and of course the decisions that we make every day in HR. So when we think about some of the frequently asked questions that you get from managers, from the executives, from even other people within different HR functions, we have talking about average cost of hire, turnover rates. We talk about filling key positions. We talk about learning, training and development, learning opportunities. How many of you all actually your teams, and no, guys, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what industry you're coming from, in which territory, whether it's a large or small organization. I'm certain that somebody, some of these questions would have been asked of, either yourself or a member of your team. Any of these questions look familiar to you? And possibly, if they don't, what are some of the other questions that you all get from, whether it be management or the executive? Yes, Samantha? Which one's familiar to you? You do your work within recruiting? Yeah, all? Wow, okay. Okay, great. Nice. You get asked every day, Rolando? Okay, so I like that. And my question now is, how has your team been responding? How quickly are they responding? Can they respond at all? What has the response been like from HR with regard to some of these simple questions that are being asked? Okay, employee turnover. Okay, thanks, Tremaine. How have you all been answering them? What's the HR response looking like? Are you all able to pull this data very quickly, answer it on the spot? Okay, Michelle, it takes a long time. Oh, and you see again some technical problems. All right. So why do you think, Michelle, that it takes a long time to calculate? Is it that your data isn't collected? Pulling data and building pivots. Okay. Pulling data from the HRIS. Yeah, I hear that all the time. We're not asked the question, but we can pull quite a bit of yeah, definitely. HRIS. Okay. Oh, you all have no HRIS? Oh, that's what's going on. So you have data scattered all over the place. Now the thing is, for HR to really be ready for analytics, it really does require data to be in a particular order. Yeah, data is also in monthly reports. Okay, all right, that's great to hear, Ms. Joseph. Yeah, yeah. And what do you all think about the HRIS? Sometimes those HRIS systems aren't as complete. As you all realize, HRIS, some of your HRIS solutions aren't as complete as they should be. Yeah. All right, nice. So good to hear that we do have some experience answering these questions. But how do we continuously do it? Rather than waiting for reacting to questions, we want to proactively be able to do these things and actually produce these types of reports and push it out rather than being asked. Yeah, yeah, correct, Samantha. All right. So the next thing is, when we think about analytics, some of the core definitions and some of the perspectives you're gonna hear, there are quite a lot out there. If you just Google HR analytics, you're gonna get a fair amount of different definitions, different perspectives on analytics, and these are some of the to me these are some of the all-encompassing ones and the much simpler ones to be able to explain to anybody, and it's really all about a data-driven approach to managing people. When we think about all the metrics, the KPIs, and all these fancy stuff, we think about all the organizations, like from the data that shows us 85% of companies believe that HR analytics is very important to the organization, but yet we see a staggering gap where only 42% of these companies are really ready to implement HR analytics. And a big part of it is based on that second perspective, which is it's an HR-led function. And it's not just an HR function, it's an HR-led. So it requires many more stakeholders, many contributors to this. It's not just revolving around HR only. It involves the entire organization. And how many of you all know some managers who are willing to work with you all to get data, or probably the total opposite, where you all have managers that are totally against giving you any kind of data and fighting tooth and nail to not provide that kind of stuff, because to them it's just like a whole bunch of extra effort, and why am I doing extra work to give you all this? What has been your experience like working with managers and others when you try to get data that you're looking for? How has that experience been? Combination of both types? Yeah. Well, we're talking about operational data on their staff, even to get performance data, because many of these managers will have to do, okay, Your manager is willing, you don't have the time. Yeah. And what happens is if you don't have your data set up in a particular way, it is gonna take a lot of time to get it set up. Power BI, that's a master tool, right? Total opposite, the data is capture is not done to assist HR. Ouch. Oh, okay. It seems like not important. I like that detriment. It seems like not important. HR seems, pretty minuscule. Yes. And I think that's why, we have to fight to actually show this. What I'll talk about later, how do we actually build that support and garner the support? I've surprisingly been able to get, local companies here in Trinidad as well as some companies in St. Lucia to actually get their support towards initiatives. So I'll try to share some of those tips with you all. Yes, they always see it as an expense, right, rather than an investment. So, but HR analytics really looks at, how do we use data to really drive our decision making? And of course, the people who are involved with human capital, everything that we do actually generates data. So, the question I have to ask is whether the organization is actually capturing that data and, where it's being captured, who has it, and how we're going to be able to access that and use it. Yeah, correct. So thanks for those contributions. I really like the feedback so far. All right. So when we think of HR analytics, we're looking to create some of these linkages, between what your employees are doing in their various capacities, and of course how that is actually how those activities would lend towards business outcomes. And only data would be able to give us those types of insights. We can use experience. All right. Okay, cool, right? We can use our own experience, and we could talk about certain patterns and trends that we may have observed, but that is subjective. And being able to collect data on processes that occur within the organization and being able to mold those those raw facts and figures into metrics that would provide those indicators that would allow us to understand where we are and what's happening right now, and then of course be able to pull those metrics together, formalize relationships, and then be able to see these patterns that could help us make future decisions, right? So this is really like the big four. I think you all are familiar. Every time you hear an analytics talk, you're gonna hear about the big four levels of analytics. You're familiar with those four levels of analytics? Anybody never heard about them? I think I'll give you all a hint. The first one is descriptive. All right, so it starts off with descriptive analytics, which is pretty much what's going on now, what's happening now. And then we have, of course, diagnostic, which will be trying to figure out, what's going on, why things are happening. Then we have predictive. So when you look at the analytics section here, we're looking at, detecting those patterns, building models, and all these things. There we go. Carol has joined us for a brief moment. And yeah, many companies do a lot of descriptive on it. All right, in terms of looking at what's happening now, it's easy to gather some of that data in terms of what's happening now. And then of course with the predictive, when we are able to predict what can be happening or what should be happening, that ties back in towards what we'll call the prescriptive, where we try to make recommendations on how to change what we're doing now to ensure that we can get better results. So therefore, let me highlight the four again, Devian. So we have descriptive, which is, now, the past into the present. We have the diagnostic, which looks at, why certain things are happening. We have predictive, which would look at, what's going to happen in the future if we continue down this path. And then we have prescriptive, which would be basically making recommendations on how to change what we're doing now, change our practices and behaviors now, so that we can get a better outcome in the future. Yeah, Deviani? I didn't want to cover too much of that. I want to break it down as simple as possible. Yeah. And really, when we look at, data to metrics to analytics, it really does cover, the four realms of what analytics is. And it's really what, operational data that we get, whether it be within HR or out of HR, how do we use that data to get those core metrics and then feed them into analytics? And that will help us, with it becomes that actionable information that we could make better decisions with. Hi, Carol, how are you?
Hi, Karen. I was having some technical challenges, but the show must go on, so we'll continue. Thanks for having me.
Certainly, welcome.
Yes.
Glad for you to be here. All right, so let's move on. All right. So when we think about, HR analytics, I know that one of the first things that will pop into your mind would be metrics. We all love metrics. I don't know how much HR people here love metrics, but I've always been a data person. So instinctually, when I fell into HR by accident about 16 years ago, I started collecting. Oh, that great! I have a partner in crime here, right? I have a kindred spirit, and the first thing we think about, we have all those big questions, and I think, guys, one of the core characteristics of anyone who really wants to master analytics is really, that curiosity. You really need to be asking a lot of questions. Asking questions of what's happening, asking questions of a process would lend towards, you creating even your own metrics. And that's why one thing I didn't put in the slide where I have key supporting metrics, I think I should have put, standard metrics, because these are generic.
Yes.
We have so many other metrics. When I worked in different companies and we've looked at different problems and different issues, we've actually pulled our own data, created our own types of metrics, or use some of these and tweak them a bit. All right. So I know, I have a feeling, Carol, that these guys have been looking at all these metrics.
Yes, and
And I
must
think
be
they're trying to figure out
wondering,
what they're familiar with.
do we have to use all of these metrics?
That's the thing. These are standard and these are supporting within certain areas, but we don't, no company that I've known actually using like every single metric out there. All right. It depends on the business focus. Yes, Carol?
Yes. Choose the right metrics. You just mentioned something about the business focus. How do we choose the right metrics?
There we go. I like what Maria de Souza is saying. The standard metrics may not be useful to the bottom line.
Bottom line,
and, yeah. And a lot of these metrics really only look at what we'll call HR efficiency. And these are what we'll call, some of the foundation metrics. Yes, I'll call them supporting metrics because they do provide some of the foundational figures that we could use for more effective metrics. And those effective metrics are what, I think many of you all in the room would know as KPIs. So the KPI, or the key performance indicator, is pretty much a metric, but it's a metric that actually has an impact on the business. So we have metrics and we have KPIs. They're pretty much the same thing. It's just one has organizational impact and the other doesn't. But some of these supporting metrics we actually would use and combine to actually lend towards, business value and all these things. So does anybody recognize any of these metrics here? Do you all use any of these? Yeah?
Yes,
yeah, Rolando?
yes.
All?
Very good.
Perfect, Rolando.
Yeah.
Rolando, I think we need to have a discussion, man. Leandra, okay, great.
Yes.
And anybody uses so Rolando, you all use except succession. Okay, great. Great. So does anybody use succession metrics or compensation metrics? What you all
yes, within the BPO, the business process organization.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Is there any metric that sounds totally foreign to anybody here? Have you all looked at these and you all trying to figure out what does this metric do?
Someone is Leandra.
Now attempting succession metrics. Okay, great, Leandra. That's a real positive step. All sound foreign to me, Tremaine? Or career path ratio. Okay, this is a great question here, Francis. With regard to career path ratio, what career path ratio does, it looks at the number of promotions within your company, and it looks at how people are moving about within your organization. It is very closely related to that talent mobility metric you're seeing up there in the talent area. So it looks at how people are being promoted internally, as well as a ratio alongside promotions and transfers. So you're looking at, out of all the people that are moving in the organization, how many are actually moving up? And that, moving up sometimes, that may be a problem, because we may have a lot of people, the organization may start becoming top heavy, and then we have to look at how are we actually deciding to promote people, what factors or criteria are we using. So if you realize something, when we look at a metric and we get the results of a metric, this is where we ask further questions like, why is this happening, or how is this like this, or even how can we make it better? So I am actually in the process of compiling a nice little metrics master list. And hopefully over time I'll be able to release that, and we could probably have further discussions on that later on. But I am working on something like that to answer some of these big questions, because I know that a lot of HR professionals actually may be using some of these metrics, but understanding the role of the metric and its impact on business is very, very important. Yes, Donette, I know, because
Yes.
as a professional myself, when I was exploring, there was a lot of trial and error, and I've learned over the years, which ones work, which ones we could tap into, what type of data we need for them, and then of course you start talking to the and the organization will have its own vision, will have its own needs, and that's where we start, compiling them and creating those custom ones. Now, I like Carol's question, where she was asking, are these really necessary for the business?
Right.
And to tell you the truth, you don't need to know all.
Right.
I've learned them over the years, because every company I kind of touched on, they would different things. So we'll explore recruitment, or we'll explore performance in another company, etc. So I've learned them over time.
It depends on the
Yes,
business
Devian,
focus, right?
Yeah. And recruiting metrics, I think, has been the most popular branch of HR analytics. Recruitment has always been something that they've measured profusely. So I think, I understand, Deviani, why recruitment works. Yeah.
Because
and so
metrics is one of the metrics that tells how efficient HR is.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
now
it looks at HR efficiency, and then this is why we don't use all, because it's based on what the business wants. And I'll just jump into our next slide, where Carol kind of led towards it.
So this model explains how HR produces value to the organization. It explains the HR value chain to the organization. But unlike the arrows that you see pointing in that direction, it begins with the business impact, the strategic objectives of the organization. And then HR will now produce its own people strategies and see how these impact the overall organization. So all the HR outcomes, you'll have your own KPIs, and your KPIs are your strategic metrics that are aligned with the business metrics. So now, Karen, tell me, suppose the company is interested in increasing its market value or its market share. How does HR align its activities and outcomes to match the strategic objective of the organization? Take us through that. Nice.
So Carol, I really like your question, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to answer that alongside two other really nice questions I got here. Michelle White is asking, does the size of the company matter when implementing these metrics? I would say, Michelle, no, right? But in actually getting the data, that's where some of the complexities would occur if the company is small versus a large organization. So it doesn't matter when you are implementing. It's really tying back to how much support you could garner from the organization to get it done. In a smaller organization, it may be easier than in a larger, more complex organizational structure. Yeah. Now, as Carol was asking as well, if an organization, Carol, did you choose a particular business impact for me to look at?
Yes, the market value. If someone wants to increase market shares, take for example, market share. How do you work from the HR activities to the HR outcomes to impact the market share?
All right, great. So since we're talking about market share, and if that's the company's focus, that is where the strategy around the organization will be developed. And to answer Leandra's question, where you're asking, are these metrics critical to the strategic development? So when we're thinking about strategic development and it's focused on one area, let's say for instance market share, while an organization can utilize all metrics if they would like to, but because of limited resources, because of the time frame, organizations would use their strategic focus to lend towards what metrics they would consider the contributors towards driving strategy. So if I look backwards here from the business impact of market share, we're looking at, of course, things like performance, right? Employee performance, employee engagement, even retention. And all of these now, if our employees are at full peak performance, if our employees are engaged, they can provide better service to our customers. And that in turn could generate more market share. And we could focus on any type of employees. We talk about our sales team, our marketing team, our customer service team. And then those core HR outcomes, which are tied to the effectiveness of HR. And these, my friends, are the KPIs. This is the KPI section here, right? So this is just a general list of, some of the core categories of KPIs that you're going to have, right? Yes, Leandra, of course.
Recruiting, of course,
yeah,
right.
And that's where the competency levels will also fall into an extent. And then, of course, even employee engagement, because if we are hiring the right people, we may not even need to train them too much, because they're already coming in with these innate skills that can be utilized to generate, a higher quality output or a higher quality service. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Sherry Lynn, you are understanding
Exactly.
the role of HR outcomes. Because I think if you all realize something, if we are focusing on recruiting, we cannot leave out training. We cannot leave out performance. We cannot leave out compensation. So all facets of
Coaching.
HR must be involved in some form or fashion. Yeah. So I like that. Yeah. Right. And then we come now, this HR activity section really focus on the metrics themselves, which would be, the core data being structured into some valuable data that we're going to be using to feed into our KPIs, and then, of course, support the business in whatever strategy they're trying to achieve. So, if you look at, simple things here, you look at workforce planning, recruitment, training, even talent management from this point of view. And, an important one here is organization design. There's one metric I think that everybody here would know, even my friend Renee, with a 0 score on HR analytics. There's one metric I think everybody should have some familiarity with in the organization. Could anybody tell me that? It's like one of the first things you get asked. Attrition, that's like the second, Rolando, but there's one that's even more primary than that. Samantha, turnover, close. But turnover affects what? If think of the Great Resignation. Think of the Great Resignation. What is the Great Resignation affecting many companies with? Productivity, that's an outcome.
Productivity.
But what is the core metric that is affecting? If we had 100 employees and 50 leave, and we're down to 50 employees, what does that 50 represent? We have 50 full-time employees versus having 100 full-time employees. What is that metric? 50 full-time employees. What is that metric? Retention? Is that retention, Dana? Right, we have full-time employees. All right, listen. I think I'm torturing you all too much. It's called headcount.
Yes.
all metrics begin with headcount. Because headcount, Samantha, there you go.
Staff versus unstaff. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
yes,
you see now how simple.
It's a simple metric.
Yeah. Once you get into HR, one of the first things you get to look at is headcount. And that is the primary metric. All these other things would, all these other different metrics, when you look at them, a lot of them would utilize headcount as part of their ratios, as part of their percentages, and all these things. Yes, Samantha, you see how simple it is? HR analytics is not difficult,
Yes.
It's not difficult, but it builds upon, what we have. So, full-time employees, how much employees are, the different levels, professionals, technical staff, management staff, executive staff, and that type of stuff. So when you start breaking it down, there you go.
Ask what is the optimal number?
Correct. What is the optimal number? Yeah, headcount.
Yes. Headcount.
And that, my friends, once you all think about headcount, at some point, every HR person has to deal with headcount. And once you deal with headcount, you are at 0.5 HR analytics, because that's one of the most critical metrics out there. Now, in this slide, we were looking at the fact that, everything feeds into business impact. And, business impact, is like the lag effect of, doing our analytics, looking at our data and making those decisions. But ironically, in order to start the process of, being analytic, having that analytic mindset, it's, yes, Samantha, you see, it's much simpler than you think. Let's keep it simple, because I've realized over the years, when we think about analytics, we start thinking about stats, we start thinking about dashboards, we start thinking about all the fancy stuff. But a lot of organizations can't reach to that point if they don't follow some of these simple measures and practices to get them there. Yeah.
We have to start
And
with the low
that has
hanging
been one of
fruits,
my
Karen.
aims. Yeah, was that Carol?
We have to start with the low hanging fruits.
Correct. And keep it simple and then grow. So we
Yes.
always talk about a piece of advice I always give people is think big, right? It's great to think big, but you have to start small. And once you start small, you start growing. It's an erosive type of activity. Yeah. Nice. So as I say, ironically, it all starts with the business. So even though at the end of it, we're generating impact for the business as a lag effect, our activities in HR analytics will always begin with the business. So it's always looking at the business goals. And what is interesting stats here in terms of research, only 1 in 4 HR business partners, would truly be considered data driven, or are capable of using analytics to actually drive decision making in businesses. All right. So 1 in 4. So think about that. And it really lends to the fact that a lot of HR professionals tend to shy away from data and think that it's so difficult and think that stats, I don't know stats, so I'm not good with figures. But there's so many tools, there's so much things that we could do. It's not difficult at all. And I'm gonna use this slide here to try to explain that nice little process. I'm trying to give you all a step-by-step roadmap to really push yourself down that path of becoming a data-driven professional. Yeah. Apart from figures and cost, well, HR professionals now, I landed in HR by accident, Tremaine, right? I have a technical background. I'm strong with data. I think things through. I am a people person. I have always been a customer service person. And, when I landed in HR by accident, I realized that I was practicing a lot of customer service, a lot of HR already, but I had, the data background to kind of lend towards, all these HR/IT projects, etc. And I think one of the things that HR people, shy away from is the fact that, when you got trained as an HR professional, there was a lot of, the soft skills involved. And, believing that the tools that we're going to get, the HRIS and some of these other things will do all those other things, but not realizing, yes, Carolyn, and that's true.
HRIS systems cannot do the analytics for you. You have to download the data, you have to transform the data, you have to massage the data to get the right insights, to do the analytics to get the right insights so you can make strategic business decisions.
And Rolando, I also started in accounting before I ended up in IT. So that's quite interesting stuff there you're sharing. And the question of, the HRIS, can these analytics be acquired without an HRS? Jermaine, absolutely yes. I have always been a supporter of open source. So Excel is actually one of those few applications that can become an expert system. You could build some really nice dashboards very quickly, very easily using Excel. Excel actually has formulas and functions that will do all of the stats and all of the analysis stuff that you need to. So, I like HRIS stuff. I like HRIS solutions, but I realize that, many of the HRIS solutions that may provide the value that you're looking for are very, very expensive. And, there's a lot of certainty in the fact that, many organizations will not invest that kind of money for HR. Yeah, Leandra, for sure. Yeah, and Excel has a lot of potential. And, maybe sometime in the future I'll throw out some articles and stuff to show you all how to actually build some decent dashboards in Excel.
Right, and you can start with the pivot tables.
Yeah, pivot tables is your ultimate friend.
Yes.
All right. So it always starts with, the business goal. There must always be a business focus. There must always be a why. Why are we doing this? So what do we aim to achieve? It's based on a why. And what are the business issues that we're solving? HR should not just be doing stuff for HR. HR's work is for the business. So we need to understand what are the business issues and try to figure out, what data do we need? All right, what data do we need to be able to start figuring out what's the root cause of the problems that the organization is facing? All right, so let's take, for instance, I think somebody was talking earlier about turnover. If a lot of people are leaving your organization and there's high turnover, what's the problem with the business? The business might be working at a lower level of productivity, right? Of course, your headcount has dropped within certain areas, so we're looking at turnover rates and all those things. But I want you all to think even, simpler than that. What data do you all think you would need to determine turnover? Even if you don't know the turnover calculation, what data do you think you would need to start thinking about, turnover, to start dealing with turnover? What do you all think? So I am at the data requirement stage here. After we've realized that turnover is a problem for the business, and we need to find a way to retain our people or to keep our people engagement. No, I'm thinking even simpler than that, Rolando.
Number of separations.
I'm thinking about I'm thinking about the actual data fields. Like if you get an Excel sheet,
and somebody said employee head count.
There we go. So we have employee head count, number of hires,
number of persons,
right? The number of people. Great. Exit interviews will give us a lot of decent data too, right? Tenure, definitely, Anicia. Tenure is one of those things you'll want to look at because we'll try to profile who are leaving the company.
Exactly.
Are they, new people, new recruits, or are they people who are seasoned professionals?
The top performers. So when you have the turnover data, you also need to dig deeper into the data.
Perfect. Yes, Leandra.
Right.
Yeah, Leandra added their time frame. That's a great one too. Yes, their age, Sharon. And survey data, Marie. Perfect. Perfect. Right? And survey data does reside in the HRS, does it?
Highest turnover at which level? Because that is from Daniel. That is very, very critical because it could be your top performers who are leaving.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Yes, Rolando as well. Where they coming from? Age group, gender, and so so we could start to actually create a profile and determine some of our high risk employees. Yeah. That's where the trouble is, right?
But Karen, there are sometimes that turnover can be good because when you have the poor performers and they leave, that's a blessing for the organization too.
Correct. Our practices that would encourage high performance, encourage our low performers, and basically weed them out.
Poor performers are leave, right? That's true. That is true.
Yeah. Nice. So when we determine what fields we need for our data, for the data model we want to build, we then have to think about where we getting the data. And I saw some of those answers there, right? Where somebody mentioning, of course, the surveys, exit interviews, our HRS is definitely one. Are there any other sources of data that we could use? What y'all think? Yeah, correct, Francis. CEOs want to do more with less, yeah? Right? That's your performance scores you're talking about, right? Yeah. Oh, the net promoter score, yes.
The net promoter score, that is very good, right?
Yes. And that's tied towards engagement. That's a clear-cut metric that actually, feeds off.
And also the employee brands too.
Correct.
The employee net promoter score ties to the employee brand.
Right. And what about where do we get the data? Probably from operational managers.
Yes.
With the teams where they are losing people. From payroll, yes, Wasian payroll as well. That's an important element to consider here. Age gaps. Yeah.
Exit interviews because you may want to know where your people are leaving, where they're going.
Nice. And we get that from inside HR. So we're thinking about, the HR department, what data we are collecting from surveys, the exit interviews, from our HRIS, right? We're also looking at our operational managers, line managers, who are losing their staff because they are, Rodney. That's a great one there too, because we'll get that. Yeah, we'll get that from their profiles in terms of, what training they have, what are the skills they have at what levels. Yes, Jermaine, appraisals as well.
What about appraisals?
Line management team.
Because appraisal can also have the potentials.
And what about like industry reports, market reports that are external? Yes, Danielle, training plans can definitely be used here also because Danielle, you're trying to figure out, is it that these guys aren't getting properly trained or they're not seeing a proper development plan for themselves?
Early warning signal. What about IR issues too? Yes, and the role of unions.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I'm liking these answers. So you see, so
Compensation
you're seeing how we.
surveys, compensation package do, yes. Because if your high
Mhm.
performers are leaving, then you may want to change the compensation package to retain those.
Yeah. And Rodney, that culture of the organization is also captured in the Net Promoter Score,
Right.
because
So,
the survey asks the questions about, whether or not they're good in teams, whether or not they're comfortable, and all the other psychological safety elements that are tied back towards the Net Promoter Score. Yeah. I'm liking these answers, man.
yes.
Appraisals
Performance
may or may not
improvement.
work. And yeah. Yes,
Pension or not?
Sharon.
Yes.
Mhm, mhm. And that's tied back to the appraiser bias. And if they don't have a proper performance system in place, you
That
can't really depend on performance data too much. Pension, it depends. It depends on what you mean, because if the resignations or the movement out of the organization would be your more senior staff, then yeah, that could actually be a possible consideration. But if the movement has been a lot of early turnover, basically, people within a year of the organization, yeah, yes, done it.
Sharon,
That's what I was saying. So if they're
Sharon, there's
younger.
a question, being asked about what software tool can be used to gather data without HRS, and
Yeah.
Excel is a simple one. Excel
Right. So
spreadsheet.
so I have a nice little list of technology tools. So we're talking about Excel is definitely one. Excel has been very powerful, and of course, HRIS systems would be able to export to CSV, and we could take those files and dump
You
them
can
into Excel,
convert
and
them
then
from CSV to
right.
Excel.
Yeah. We could work in that. Now, I also did a lot of custom work, using Python. So a little programming involved, building on dashboards using the same CSV files, as well as, whatever else you collect from, other sources. The R
It's
language has
open
been very
source.
popular. Yeah, these are open source. I'm hashtag open source, free analytics. You don't want to have to pay an exorbitant licensing fee for some applications that may not give you exactly what you are looking for. And what I try to encourage those guys who are, now in the realm of exploring analytics, yes, SAP as
SAP.
well. Certain elements of SAP, yes, certain licenses of SAP are open source, and you can utilize that. But SAP is more of an aggregator, just collecting data rather than high level analytics stuff. So it depends. It depends, Rolando, on which branch of SAP you're really thinking about. So like you have the business warehouse, you have some other elements there. But yeah, SAP, there are elements of SAP that could work here also. You're
Power
looking
BI.
at Power BI.
Power BI
Power
and,
BI is,
and Tableau.
and it can work alongside Excel. So you can have, those Microsoft licenses, and you could
Yes.
really do a lot of magic there. You have Tableau also, because Tableau could pull in those same CSV files. You have Tableau desktop, you have Tableau public. Definitely, guys, I have a recommendation. If you're using Tableau public, do not put HR data in there.
No, data
Right? Tableau
privacy.
public,
Data
yeah,
privacy.
and one of the things with analytics is really about data governance. You really want to manage that data and the privacy of that data that passing through. Yeah, yeah, and definitely some of these solutions are pretty expensive, so you need to be cautious with regard to how you are utilizing these, because I know many companies spend a lot of money on some of these tools, but they don't get the type of output. Because simply put, guys, if you look at these two stages in the middle, the second and third, data requirements and data sources, this is where a lot of organizations fall short in HR analytics. Because HR analytics, we talk about analytics which need metrics, and metrics need data. And if we aren't thinking about what data we need to answer some of the core questions with business, and if we don't think about where we're going to get our data, then we're just going to be, playing around, doing very little, because the quality of the data is not going to be, sufficient for what we need it for. And that's one of the problems. But Sherilyn, do you need to hire a programmer, or do you have an IT department with a couple of programmers that you could pull?
Because
Yeah.
that could be very expensive too.
Yeah. Nice. So okay, what's your preference? Here to spend some more money on that. Yes, Jermaine, exactly. And this is where when you want to start this analytics journey, you have to think about these 4 stages in terms of what are the top issues your organization are facing, those top problems, and then start thinking about what data do you need and where you're getting them from. The tool would come in after. And first you could look at Excel. I would say just explore Excel first. Ensure that your teams, because I've been doing a lot of HR analytics work with teams and training with teams, and most of the training is in Excel. So we basically doing an HR analytics session, but it's pretty much an Excel training session to utilize Excel to actually do analytics. And since most organizations already have Excel, licensing paid for,
yes.
365, it's basically a free tool. All right. And then of course, when you start digging deeper, you could actually use Python in Excel. So you could build a lot of really cool dashboards and really cool stuff that you may not get in an HRIS, because most HRIS solutions,
they don't have that.
They're pretty inflexible. You can't really customize them the way you want to. You can create some custom reports, but many of these don't accommodate additional data dropping in or custom data fields dropping in on a high level. And then even if you can do it, it's very complex. So it's much more complex than if you explore Excel and you incorporate Python in there and stuff like that. All right. Yes, we do. But it looks like we need another programmer. Yeah. Well, Sherry Lynn, we have a lot of HR practitioners now that are exploring that, myself included. Looking at Python, finding ways to actually get things to work. And programming in Python is not very difficult. I'm actually working on a roadmap that will kind of help other HR professionals kind of explore Python and install things like Visual Studio, where they could put a few lines of code, because Python is not a very, very difficult language to learn. And if it is, you go through a tutorial. If you go through one tutorial and you type in some code and you see magic happening with some of your HR data, I think it will drive you enough to start, exploring it even more. So it doesn't make you a hardcore programmer, but it does make you an extra enticing HR professional, when it comes to, garnering the data and being able to utilize it.
Karen, someone is asking if P3 accounting software can be used for metrics gathering tool.
Yeah, you would get some data in there, because you'll get history of, because there's a lot of, in terms of the cost of downtime, you get a lot of that from certain accounting. Of course, things like payroll, even some of your inventory stuff, because I worked in an organization where with the warehouse, we had to look at how inventory was affected by, staff absenteeism and lack of productivity. And we actually utilized some reports from P3 to get some more insight in terms of how the figures are actually looking from that point of view. So yeah, anything that has operational data as well as financial data, all of that can be used for analytics, because it gives you that holistic picture behind what you need to figure out and how you need to do that. Yeah. Yes, Samantha, Tableau is quite easy as well
to use, right?
Yeah.
Guys, I wanted to jump in just to do a time check, because it's at the top of the hour. And to see if you wanted to start the exercise, because remember we need to do the reset at 7:15. But tell me how you'd like to proceed.
Perfect timing, because I think the exercise is the next slide. So let's jump into that.
Yes, the exercise is the next one.
All right. What I'll do, guys, I have an image of it as well, so I could share it here in the chat. Let me find it. Right, here we go. Slide 8. All right, so I'm tossing that up in the chat. Right, great. So you all should be able to see that image in the chat. And what I'd like for us to do, when we break out into those tables and we having those discussions, is we have a practical case here. And I want you all, it's more of a self-evaluation exercise. You're doing more of a self-assessment in terms of, your ability to think about all these different questions and think about, data, and think about where it's coming from and what data do you need. And, so the case here is really, Harold has been implementing a supervisory training program. So it's an internal supervisory training program for the past 4 years at this company. Of course, COVID had hit and it postponed all these, for the future. Nobody knows when it's going to restart. Now, Harold wants to provide the senior management team with evidence that the training program does increase, employee engagement, customer satisfaction, and even, the sales figures of the company, because he wants them to reopen that particular training program, whether it be virtually or not. So the core KPI you're thinking about here is that training return on investment, because he's doing a training program and he's trying to prove, that we are getting some return from, that internal training program and the investment that we're making here. So the actual calculation is the return of the benefit minus the investment, and of course we divide that by the investment and we get a percentage. Now, what I want you all to think about, don't think about the KPI too much, because don't get confused or don't start to think it's overwhelming. What I want you all to do is just really be able to answer these simple questions, like what are the aims of the supervisory training program, and what business issues is it really solving, and what data fields, I'm talking about as granular as the field, what fields do you need, what would he need to really show the benefit or show the results when he starts analyzing, and where would he get those data fields from, right? Who's going to provide that to him? Is he getting it from HR? Is he getting it from some particular party, etc.? Okay, Rodney, no problem. All right. And then, of course, what tools can he probably use to be able to create some kind of model, whether it be as simple as, Excel, just throw up a pivot table, or he could build a model using, let's say Tableau, etc. All right. So I think with this, y'all could grab that. And when we go out into the tables and y'all drop in there, I want you all to have that chat. And I'll try to drop in once the table is not full. Carol and I are gonna try to drop into the tables and add a little bit to the discussion. So Francis, I think you could take it away from there.
Do that. Okay, guys. So for those of you who are veterans of Remo, the way this is gonna work is I'm gonna hit a button and we're gonna end up in conference mode. And I just put a graphic in the chat that shows you all the different kinds of things that will happen in conference mode. So you can move around from table to table. You can chat with people at your table. Just turn on your microphone and your camera. You can use the chat. It's the same chat that we're using right here. It's carried over into conference mode. So you can find the instructions for the exercise in the chat. So we're going to give you 15 minutes, but let me tell you something else, is that we're going to take the reset at 1:15. Actually, we should probably take it now. Actually, let me take it now. All right, hold on. Let me just do something a little bit different from what I thought I would do. Hold on. So let me stop the recording. All right, I'm going to tell you exactly what to do. So I put in slide 9 that I just dropped into the chat, one that has the pictures of the presenters. I'm gonna actually close the room and do the reset now, and then bring us all right back into conference mode. Now what that means is you'll have to hit the refresh button on your browser, because when I do the reset, the room will actually close, but you'll hit the refresh button. The first thing you'll see when you come back is that it'll say that the event is over, but don't worry, just hit the refresh button on your browser. Just keep hitting it, and eventually the new room will open back up. Okay, that's if you're here on Remo. If you're on YouTube, you should have joined the chat on WhatsApp. I'm gonna drop Dale, can you drop the link for the chat on WhatsApp? Just gonna drop that once again in case you didn't see it before. Okay, so if you're watching on YouTube, Karen, can you turn off your sharing of screens for me?
Sure.
So I can show these guys. It gets a little bit different because I have to do a couple of things differently. Okay, so that we accommodate folks on both platforms. Okay, so if you're on YouTube and you don't know where the chat is, here's where the chat is. Great, so just type that copy it real quick, type that into your browser, and you'll be brought into a chat on WhatsApp. It's already started. There are a bunch of people still already talking about the exercise, and they're gonna do the exercise. They probably have already started while I'm here. And so if you're on YouTube, just go to that WhatsApp and start working on the exercise. If you're here on Remo, I'm gonna pull us into presentation mode. Then I'm gonna hit the reset button, and all you need to do is to keep refreshing your browser until the new room comes up. How and where to find refresh? Macario, you're refreshing the browser. Okay, so that's should be the top left-hand corner if you're on Firefox, Chrome, Explorer, one of the above. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and let's go back into networking mode, and then I will do the reset. All right, guys, I'll see you over there in conference mode in about a minute. Well, it'll go instantly, but then I'll do the reset. And see you back here in a minute.
Thanks, Francis.